When I first acquired my Pearson 424 sailboat, I was barely able to understand whether a valve was open or closed, let alone attempting to understand why all the valves were placed where they were to begin with. I vaguely understood that I needed a pump to push the water from a tank to the faucet, but understanding what combination of valves being on or off to optimize the water system had until very recently been somewhat of a mystery. After spending last season working through why my freshwater pump was short cycling, I ended up iterating through many of the potential issues, and my overall understanding of the freshwater system has exponentially increased as a result. Today I'd like to share with you the fruits of all that learning and work, because the easiest path to solve a problem in the first place is to understand the system you are troubleshooting to begin with. I will also provide insight into another problem I encountered during this past season, which contributed to more pump short cycling issues. Check out this video on my first efforts to address water system issues last season. Why is the freshwater system important? A tainted or problematic freshwater supply can severely limit your ability to make passages and enjoy your vessel to the fullest. I'm going to go through each of the components of a freshwater system step by step and show you how they all work together in tandem to provide you with safe and reliable fresh water on your vessel. I will also share with you tools you should have aboard to maintain or address system issues, and share the freshwater system maintenance checklist I've developed to stay on top of this effort for my vessel, Silver Heels. Okay, the first component I want to go over with you for the freshwater system is the water tanks. My freshwater tanks are underneath my settees. This is the starboard setee right here I'm sitting on top of, and I'm looking into the inspection panel. This gives me access to the tanks. I'm winterizing right now, or finishing winterizing. So I've just taken a sponge and sopped out the tanks to dry them out. So during the off season, those will be nice and dry, and we won't be growing mold or bacteria in those tanks. So we'll have a nice clean tank for freshwater use moving forward. These tanks are fiberglass in this vessel. I've got 3 total for 55 gallons each. That is 165, if my math is correct, gallons of water capacity on this vessel. To determine whether a valve is open or closed, simply look at the lever, and if it's parallel to the housing, that is normally an open valve. And if it is crossing the housing, perpendicular to the housing, that is a closed valve. That's how you know whether a valve generally is opened or closed. Most follow that convention. The water tanks are connected via hoses to the freshwater system. They're drawn via a pressurized water pump, and each of the hoses will have valves associated with them. So generally I have 3 water tanks here. I will have 1 valve open and the other valves closed to facilitate efficient water draw from the water pump. The guts of the water system is the pressurized pump, which you can see behind me. It's this orange pump right here, which is located in the galley, usually underneath the faucet, right? So this is what creates pressure through the hoses in the whole system and allows you, when you turn on a faucet, to draw water. When the pressure decreases in the system as you're drawing water, the pump kicks on and delivers water to the system. In addition to the water pump, I also have a municipal water inlet where a nozzle is located on the port side of the boat that can be connected via a hose. And it's basically the hose that you would find on most docks. So you could screw a hose onto that inlet and then turn on or open a particular valve underneath the galley, and subsequently turn off a valve here at the base of the water pump. And in that way, you could get pressurized water from that hose. That hose would feed your pressurized water system, and the pump wouldn't have to do anything. It's just the pressure from the hose that's on the dock giving you your pressurized water. If I'm just disconnecting from the shore and I'm no longer going to use that hose, I would close the municipal water inlet valve, and I would turn back on the pump valve that would then draw water from those tanks. Failing to do this last season
resulted in the water pressure escaping out of the inlet cap, as you see here, which was the cause of pump short cycling. Ensuring either this valve was closed or the cap on the municipal water intake was tightly sealed would have prevented my experiencing short cycling pump issues during the second half of the 2025 sailing season.
The water is then fed through the water filters. I have two water filters in here. This one is, I believe, 5 microns, and this is the main water filter. If I want to actually drink water, I actually have a second Culligan water filter back here that water goes through, and it goes through a particular faucet that feeds into this galley sink, and that provides for double filtering of the water if somebody wants to drink water from the water tanks here. Once the water goes through the filters, it then heads for the water heater. So if we want hot water, some of the water will be separated into 2 streams, a hot water stream and a cold water stream. If it's potentially hot water, if we're asking for hot water in either the shower or the faucets, then it's going to go through the hot water loop, and it will be fed, that water will be fed into the water heater tank and then back out. One thing I don't have in my water system is an accumulator tank or an expansion tank. An accumulator tank is placed a little bit after the pump. And just imagine if this tank is located right after the outlet of your pressurized pump, it'll pump water into that tank and then out again until the pressurized system hits its level. So that tank is basically filled up. There's air inside of the tank. The air that's left in the tank is creating higher pressure, so that in the event that somebody wants to draw water from a faucet, the water will leach out of that tank first. That air is going to put pressure on that bladder, and the water will spill out and give the water to the faucet or the shower or whatever. And that tank will deliver the water before your pump will then kick on. So once the tank empties to a certain level and to the pressure point where now the pump realizes, oh, the system doesn't have enough pressure, it turns on, and then it fills that tank back up and continues to provide demand. So it's like an extra little reservoir of water that decreases the workload on your tank and prevents short cycling to a large extent. The expansion tank is usually on your hot water cycle, on the hot water side of the system right after the hot water tank. And it just facilitates extra expansion, because when water heats up in the water tank, that expansion tank is a place for that water to go because it's expanding right as it heats up. So the extension tank is just another place that the water can go to, and that also facilitates less work on the pump and decreases the possibility of short cycling, which is useful in your water system. All right, there are a number of tools that I maintain to make sure I can support the water system. That includes a few sets of wrenches, short and long-handled wrenches that are adjustable sizes. I keep both English and metric versions of wrenches. Vice grips are always handy. Screwdrivers, both Phillips and flatheads. Pipe wrench is super handy, but it is heavy and burdensome and bulky. But that is also for a heavier pipe. That can be super handy to torque off a nut that is stuck. Channel locks are super useful. I also have this pipe wrench, which is useful in a pinch to get into a odd corner. You can get this thing snapped over a nut and then torque it loose. That's always handy. I've got pipe dope and fittings. So pipe dope is used to seal a particular fitting from one to another. You generally want to know what your plumbing system is in here and have like the appropriate connectors, whether it's a barb connector, the appropriate sized threads, the appropriate sized diameter of fittings, so that everything ultimately fits together. Extenders, and you're going to want, all the right pieces. So generally, elbows are nice to have as well. and Teflon tape. So whenever I connect any two pieces together, I put on Teflon tape and then put a little bit of this pipe dope on, and that usually seals the connection so that we don't have leaks. Lastly, I want to mention that I've recently picked up a water inspection kit. So this kit has a number of like test strips that you can use to test the water. And it also tests for bacteria as well. It has 4 bacteria tests. So this is going to be coming handy for next season. I'm very interested to see whether or not I am, how clean my water is and whether or not there's any sort of contaminants. And I can't think of a better way to do it than just test it on the spot. Like, because we're all getting, you know, as boaters, we're all getting hose water, water from a municipal system. And, you know, that water may not always be great. So we filter it as best we can through the filters we have in our boats. But to test it might not be a bad idea, right? To make sure that we're not drinking anything we don't want to drink. Checklists. I want to go over my spring and fall checklists. In the spring, I am going to be replacing these filters, putting in the plugs that I had taken out during the fall, the plugs for all the water tanks and the plug for the bilge. And then I'm going to be filling up fresh water into my water tanks. I usually fill them up to about 80% capacity. I generally don't fill them all the way to the 55-gallon full capacity because I found in the past, there was one particular year where I filled those tanks, went out in heavy seas, and the fresh water in the tanks actually spilled out a little bit and created a little bit of hazard on the deck or the sole. So I choose to not fill them up completely. In the fall, I do the exact opposite. I'm going to pull those plugs, right? I'm going to empty the water from the tanks. I'm going to flush the system. So I'm going to sanitize, put a sanitizer solution into both the port and starboard tanks and flush that sanitizer solution through the entire system, especially through the water heater as well. I want the water completely cycling through that water heater tank to empty it out. I will then simply continue to run all the faucets, turn all the faucets on until all the tanks drain. Any residue water, I will then drain into the bilge. And again, I will pull a drain plug from the bilge and drain water out of there as well. Afterwards, I will go to all the tanks and sop out any excess water so that during the winter, I'm in heated storage. I'm not going to use antifreeze. And during that winter time, I want all these tanks dry so there's no mold, mildew, bacteria growing in the tanks. I just want everything nice and clean so the following spring, I'll have nice clean reservoirs for the water. One extra thing I want to mention is for the sanitizing solution that I use at the end of the season to flush out the water system in the tanks, I generally use bleach. I just put a little bleach into the water and flush it through the system and all the hoses and the plumbing through the water heater, everything. I just put that sanitized solution, which is more or less bleach and water, completely through the system. And I tend to use bleach because I guess I'm old school. I want to use something that is commonly available everywhere in the world, or most places in the world. And of course, the downside of bleach is that the bleach can, over time, cause a little damage to hoses, gaskets, the connections throughout the plumbing system. It can just kind of degrade the seals and potentially cause leaks in the system throughout the system over time. And there are definitely a lot of common solutions to this problem. Aqua is one that is sold by Starbright, and I think that is a reputable company. So that might be a route I would go in the future if I wanted to change and try to protect the integrity of the system by using a non-bleach product. But generally, I just go old school, and bleach has been around for a long time. It's a household product, and that's what I use to currently sanitize my system. And you can check out this video to find out what I did specifically at the end of this last season. I want to thank my subscribers. Really appreciate your support. If you've stayed until the end of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd press that like button. That helps the channel grow. This is Sailor Eric. Thanks for watching.